in fact, as our president said, as our spokesperson for the office of the president said, as pretty much most of our officials have said today, Ukraine is not behind this attack. They are trying to ramp up some public support for their aggressive, unprovoked war because they have nothing to show to their own people for the second year running.
We're talking with Yuriy Sak. He's an advisor to Ukraine's Minister of Defense. Yuri, today, the 3rd of May, 2023, there was a drone that appeared to attack the Kremlin. And immediately the Kremlin said that Ukraine was behind this attack. What's Ukraine's response, the military's response to this?
JJ, as you probably by now have seen, that every time Russians do some kind of provocation, what they tend to do is they accuse immediately, without hesitation, Ukraine in committing these activities. Now, in fact, as our president said, as our spokesperson for the office of the president said, as pretty much most of our officials have said today, Ukraine is not behind this attack. And the fact that it happens just a few days before the Victory Day, which is ordinarily celebrated in Russia on May 9th. So, you know, they are trying to ramp up some public support for their aggressive, unprovoked war because they have nothing to show to their own people for the second year running. Okay, they were hoping that they would have like a victory parade in Kyiv last year because they thought that Ukrainians will not put up a fight. They thought that we will be intimidated, and they thought that they will run their tanks on our central street of Kyiv. Now, that didn't happen. Moreover, during the last 12 months, not much has happened. We have kicked them out from a number of areas in Ukraine, but they have not achieved much progress. So, of course, they are desperate to find some kind of proof for their own people that there is some sense in what they're doing in Ukraine, but there isn't any sense. It's a senseless, unprovoked aggression, and they will be punished for it.
How is Ukraine responding to this? Because I know shortly after the news became public about this, there was an air raid alert that I think was in place for Kyiv and maybe larger portions of the country, suggesting that some Russian strategic bomber had taken off or something of that nature. So how is Ukraine responding to the aftermath of this?
JJ, we are dealing with this terrorist state on a daily basis. Only in the last 10 days, there have been 3 massive missile strikes on Ukraine. During those strikes, you know, children were killed, again, in the city of Uman, as I'm sure you heard on the news. Small children. And, you know, while we still didn't have time to give them a proper burial to these little Ukrainians who were peacefully asleep at their homes and they were killed, we had one missile attack after another. And actually today, while everybody is talking about these strange, very theatrically looking drones over Kremlin, the Russians have attacked the city of Kherson again, killing 21 persons and injuring over 40 people. Now, this is terrorism. This is what they have to be held accountable for. And, you know, these bombers, the rumors that some bombers took off, I mean, look, we have our air defenses. They're not perfect, but we are capable to protect ourselves with certain degree of success. So we hope that we will just continue protecting our cities and at the same time preparing for our counteroffensive.
And speaking of the counteroffensive, some of your officials have said in the last few days that they believe that Ukraine is just about ready for whatever's going to happen. Now, we don't expect under any circumstances there's going to be some kind of announcement from the Ukrainian military or the government that we are starting our counteroffensive now. But give us a sense of the preparations that are being put in place for this.
Without being able to share any details, of course, I can just only say that the preparations are taking place along the front lines in different parts of, you know, eastern Ukraine, southern Ukraine, because, you know, counteroffensive, or we should probably call it offensive, because Russians didn't have any offensive. They were trying to gain control of the city of Bakhmut for 6 months, more, almost 7 months by now, and they've not achieved any success. So our offensive, our campaign to continue to liberate our land, it's not just something that happens during a very short period of time in some particular location, right? It's a series of different scale military operations, beginning from reconnaissance to, making sure that we can break through the enemy's defense lines, making sure that we know all the weaknesses of the enemy. So all that has been happening for a while now, and we like our Minister of Defense, Alexei Reznikov, said, we're almost ready. We're almost ready. The spring is coming.
The weapons, the ammunition, the elements that you need to get from the West, they've been coming in, and you've been putting them to use. You've been training and preparing for whatever is next. How would you assess Ukraine's needs in terms of what it's been getting from the West and what it still needs?
Well, we are indeed receiving military support from our allies, and actually, we've just had an announcement of a new package from the United States of America, for which we are grateful to the American government, to the American people, because we understand that in the United States of America there is a bipartisan, overwhelming, unwavering support of Ukraine. This means a lot to us. Now, as for, this is the most intense warfare since World War II, and of course, in this intensity, no amount of ammunition, no amount of artillery, or no amount of tanks can be, if you ask the soldiers or their commanders, it's never enough. But anyhow, we have sufficient weapon systems now and sufficient ammunition that will allow us to, implement our military objectives. Now, what is still missing, of course, are the long-range missiles, and we keep talking about them to our partners. And of course, fighter jets. I mean, this is the talk of the day, and we talk about fighter jets, F-16s everywhere, and there are over 4,000 F-16s around the world, and we are just at this stage requesting a little more than 40. So we just need 1%, because F-16s are the most versatile and universal platform, fixed wing platform, which will, first of all, improve our air defense capabilities, make it complete, and second of all, will of course ensure that our military operations on the ground, our ground forces, get sufficient air cover to be successful on the battlefield and to incur as minimum losses as possible.
And Yuri, speaking of losses, earlier this week, the U.S. National Security Council Strategic Communications Coordinator John Kirby spoke to us reporters, and he mentioned the U.S. had declassified some intelligence indicating that since December, Russia has lost 100,000 people, and 20,000 of them, he said, were people killed in action. And he said that was largely represented by the Wagner Group. But he declined to talk about what Ukraine's losses would be out of respect for Ukraine. How can you characterize against, or can you characterize against those losses for Russia, what Ukraine has lost or who Ukraine has lost?
I would like to say, JJ, that for us, the loss of even one soldier is a tragedy, because unlike this Wagner group, who are, convicted murderers and rapists who have been mobilized and recruited from prisons, on our side, we have, IT guys, doctors, ballet dancers. We have like really good Ukrainian people fighting this war, and every loss of every one of them is very, very tragic for us. At the same time, of course, it is a war and we incur losses, but our losses are way, way below those that Russians take, because we don't treat our soldiers as cannon fodder. We don't actually throw them into the meat grinder, right? So they are considerably smaller than those of the enemy.
Yuri, thank you. Is there anything
you
want to add here that I haven't asked you about that you think is important today?
I think that's it. I think we've covered most of the most important issues today.
We've been talking with Yuriy Sak. He's the advisor to Ukraine's Minister of Defense. Thank you for watching, and we ask you please to subscribe to us. And Yuriy, we thank you for taking time to talk to us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you, JJ.